A lot of people ask me how I was able to, like, in under 2 years, learn Mandarin to a decent level. And I think the answer to that, apart from having like a lot of Chinese friends, being able to socialize Chinese a lot and spend a lot of time listening, I think the main answer is 2 words: sentence mining. And that's going to be the topic of today's video, how to do this efficiently. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. I'm Will. If you don't know me, I'm a second-year medical student interested in learning languages and interested in meta-learning and productivity, and that's what I share on this channel. You know, if you haven't yet subscribed, I really appreciate it if you do. However, you know, if you don't, I'll probably forgive you. Anyway, in today's video, we're going to be talking about how to go about sentence mining. I'm going to break this down into a few different steps, and then we're going to talk about a few mistakes that I made and some of my friends made when they went about doing this, so that you guys don't have to go through that kind of pain that I did. Let's get started. As we go through these different steps, as an example, I'm going to show you guys how I learned the words for jackfruit or 菠萝蜜 in Chinese, as I think this is a good example and shows you the different steps of sentence mining. First step of sentence mining is to find a useful sentence that you know you're going to be able to use in your real life and it will help you acquire some of the vocabulary that you're going to need regularly. But at the same time, it has to be quite memorable in order for this to work even better. So for that, we're going to be using the sentence. So for example, the other day I went with my girlfriend to have a meal at, Wetherspoons. I don't know if you guys know that. If you're not from the UK, you probably won't. But it's got some cheap food because, I'm a student anyway. And the sentence that I'm going to use for this is 我跟我女朋友前2天吃了个菠萝蜜口味的pizza. Because for me, having flipping jackfruit on a pizza is a bit weird. So it's going to be very memorable to me. So that's the first step. And also, if we take a look at this example sentence as well, it's using a lot of words I'm going to be using and structures that I'm going to be using on a daily basis. So that's the first step. We're going to get this sentence ideally from your friends, a native speaker, ideally from books, TV shows, and things like this that have some kind of relation to you or that you're interested in. So the next step is to copy this sentence into Anki or your whatever you use for sentence mining. Maybe it's another SRS or maybe it's something completely different, I don't know. But you're going to put it in there with some pinyin or any other kind of pronunciation prompts that you need. Okay, now the whole point of this is that from the context of the sentence, we're going to be able to kind of recognize what word it would be and then able to recall it effectively and kind of reinforce those memory traces. However, sometimes a big mistake that a lot of people make, including my girlfriend, is that you put some really vague sentences and you crop out a load of words using closed deletion or whatever on Anki to try and sentence mine, and you'll have no idea. After a few weeks, you have no idea what you're trying to remember. So how would I recommend getting around this problem? Well, that's step 3. What we're going to do is we're going to add a picture, or we're going to add some hints, as you can see in these examples here. So the next step is to review the sentence according to ideally the spaced repetition algorithm that you're using. So you're going to be reviewing this regularly. Now, what are you going to do when you're actually reviewing these sentences? As I've said before in some of my other videos, I believe one of the big parts of language learning is learning to be flexible with grammar, kind of sentence structures that you're used to and you're familiar with, and being able to swap in other words into them. That's something that really helps me. So what I would suggest is that every time you're seeing that sentence, you're going to read that sentence aloud with the word that's missing, having recalled that. And at the same time, you're then going to modify it, changing just 1 or 2 words every time to try and keep it grammatically correct, but then getting used to swapping in other words. And ideally, you try and use the word that you're learning more than once as well in different contexts. So for example, in this, we've got my sentence, haven't I? We've got 我跟我女朋友前2天吃了个菠萝蜜口味的pizza. Then I could kind of swap it and be like, 我还挺喜欢这个菠萝蜜口味的pizza. 这个菠萝蜜口味的pizza还不错呀。然后我没想到菠萝蜜的披萨这么好吃啊。You can try to start getting creative with it and swapping in new sentences and different kind of structures that you're used to. That's you're trying to get familiar with how to use this word. Before we move on to 3 common mistakes that I've had encountered in the past with sentence mining, we're going to talk about 2 quick tips that I think would really help. And the first one of those is you can also use this method for any corrections you get from native speakers. So I would literally, every time I made a mistake with like my friends or my girlfriend, etc., like I would get them to send me the sentence that's correct. And then I would do exactly the same thing as I've just outlined below, like with the adding the photos, adding the hints, reviewing this sentence regularly. I would do that for everything that I got wrong. So then eventually these things, I'd start saying the correct thing at the correct time. And as for like different words, like how to go about sentence mining, I just want to quickly mention here how I went about that for nouns and for verbs. So for something like a basic noun or something like that, you know, for example, this 菠萝蜜, I'm probably only going to need one card, and it's probably going to have a picture on it, a nice picture of a jackfruit that's quite memorable, ideally on a pizza, right? And then, and then for verbs, oh, sorry about that. And then for verbs, what we're going to do is, it's probably going to be a bit more complex. So it would, ideally, I would recommend trying to get each verb or any other more complex words in at least 3 different contexts. So that's 3 different sentences. And you're not going to just slam them all in on the same card. Ideally, you're going to try and separate them into 3 different cards so you can review these at different times according to the algorithm. And I think personally, I found that more effective. Okay, so next we're going to be talking about 3 common mistakes that I've personally encountered with sentence mining. Okay, so the first mistake is trying to put a massive paragraph on your Anki card. Now I've seen a lot of people do this, I've been guilty of it myself. And a lot of, one of the big mistakes that I even have to go back through my cards and sort out now is like adding loads of different example sentences for different words on one card. And the reason why this won't be particularly efficient is, well, there's 2. Firstly, it will take a lot longer to review each card, and that can be quite demotivating, and that can cause you to like, sometimes you'll get a bit lazy and just skip over like a few of the words that are on each card. Secondly, we have the problem with the whole point of Anki is that some things are inherently harder to remember for whatever reason that we don't really know than others. So if you're putting loads of different words together, it's very hard for the algorithm to schedule that according to the memory curve well. So sometimes that will mean that we get, like you're trying to review 5 words at once. Well, what happens if you get 3 of them right and 2 of them wrong? Then like, when should you then review that? Like, because you're not too sure, are you? The easier words will just get easier and easier, while the harder words will probably just get harder and harder over time. So it's a lot better to separate them out. Don't learn an entire paragraph. The next mistake that I made a lot, and so has my girlfriend and other friends that have tried this, is that we try and add sentences that don't have enough context. And that just means you have no idea what word we're trying to remember. So the way to get around with this, as I've mentioned, is add pictures and add little hints, ideally in the target language as well. The whole point of this was we're trying to use Chinese to learn Chinese, or whatever target language you're using to try and learn the target language and try and skip over that translation step. The final mistake we've seen, I've mentioned it again, is trying to learn a word just from one context. Now the example I often give of this is something like lai in Chinese, right? Lai in Chinese has so many different uses that if you're just going to add one card for it, or even worse, if you're going to be, like I did this when I first started learning Chinese, I had a Anki flashcard that said lai on the front, and then it said to come on the back. Now let's be honest, lai, I can hardly ever translate lai as to come in Mandarin. It's just very difficult because there's like so many different uses of it. So don't be afraid to add lots of different cards for one verb, because it's not equivalent to like learning to come in English. It's the equivalent of learning like a ton of different uses of one word in Mandarin, so they're not equal. So don't worry about adding too many cards, just go for it. It's going to help you in the long run. Okay guys, thank you so much for watching this video. That's it for today. I really hope it's been helpful for you. If you have any questions about sentence mining, please do let me know. I'd also appreciate it if you could subscribe, give me a like, give me a comment. You could, if you're really feeling it, you can even follow me on Twitter, so that way you can keep up with like when my next video releases are. Thank you so much. I'll see you guys next time. Bye.